Welcome back. Another episode here for the podcast. It's been a little bit since I had time to record, so I apologize for that. Ben and the guys have been doing a good job of finding stuff that we've already recorded in the past that have not been podcasts before. So I appreciate their help with that. Schedule is just tough, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I've fallen behind with quite a few things, which is okay because I think it's very very realistic. And the guys and I have talked a little bit about some of the stuff and how do we get caught back up, and how do we keep things moving with certain projects. And again, it's just that is life. So the dog part of it for me is interesting because when I look at some of the progress, a lot of our projects are connected to dogs, obviously. So at times I think about that and I go, well, how is this impacting the dog as far as its progress and training? And I in those moments are when I go, well, I should probably talk about that, and I should probably mention that or make a post about that on one of the social platforms, and that's what we're doing right here. But it doesn't hurt them that bad, I don't think. In fact, I think it's sometimes better. I know it sounds strange because I do think you can't do it to an extreme one way or the other. I talk about extremes a lot. I talk about the importance of trying not to be extreme one way or the other in a lot of things that you do in life, dogs in particular. Balance is very important. Figuring out how to get in the middle is very important. Figuring out, and that's like an ultimate goal. And I don't know that we ever get truly in the center and we truly get that balance, that perfect balance that we're looking for. But it's certainly something we strive for. I think it's always adjusting. It's always constantly, something is weak, so we work on something else to strengthen it, and then something else becomes a little weak, so we work on something else to strengthen it. And it is this bit of a balancing act going back and forth. So I think that I've got two young dogs. My older dogs, do I need a lot of work in my older dogs? Probably not. Could they all be, when I say older dogs, I'm talking Taylor, Ellie, Spry. Do they need work? Yeah, for sure. Do they need to be sharpened? Could they be sharpened? For sure. Could they be, transformed significantly? I don't know. Maybe if I decided to go a different direction with my ultimate goals with those dogs, I suppose it could happen at ages 5, 7, and 9, I guess, is what they're coming up on. But I don't have that desire. Now, I do think that, Ellie just had puppies. So she's physically not in that good a shape. Not because of the puppies so much, but we and folks that came to our workshop know this story. For about a week, I didn't pay very close attention, and all of a sudden, Blue's puppy food bag was not in our cupboard, and I just don't know how it slipped me, but one day I looked at Ellie and I went, man, she just looks really big and out of shape, and I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple days later, I recognized, boy, the Blue's puppy food we're really going through it quickly. Well, here Ellie was helping herself to a bag of puppy food for about a week, and it put a lot of weight on her. And it happened pretty quickly, and I didn't realize how quickly it happened. And I've been fighting with it to kind of get her back into a little bit better shape. I'm not concerned about it. I mean, it's kind of funny. It was kind of funny at the time, but I got to get her back in shape. So yeah, there are things that I can and should be doing with my older dogs as well. But the young ones, Blue in particular, I think he's coming up maybe coming up on 5 months. He's getting close to probably 20 weeks old. Makina is coming up on 8 months. I've been really, I don't want to say hot and cold, but we've gone on really good streaks of progress. We've made some really good progress in their training, and we've stayed at it. I mean, I've been probably pretty very consistent with their training. Makina, especially from an exercise standpoint, and whenever I exercise her, I'm trying not to do mindless energy burn-offs. I'm trying to like gain something from it, both mentally and physically. But she definitely needs the physical release more than Blue does. Blue's really chill and he's really relaxed, and he's just a fantastic little dog. So they have different needs when it comes to that exercise. But I probably have been pressing a little bit at times with them. I'm going to a field trial this weekend with my son. I went to a grouse field trial. I don't think I even talked about it yet, but I really, really am excited to talk about that. I've got a friend of mine that is involved heavily. He's the president of the Minnesota Grouse Dog Association. I plan on doing a call with him. I'd like to pick his brain a little bit more. Jerry Coulter, who is the breeder of Makina, I trained with him about a week and a half ago. Another episode in itself right there. I want to talk with him a little bit more. I did talk with him a little bit more, and I want to share some of that with you guys. But this whole grouse dog trial thing is real interesting to me. At Jerry's recommendation, I read a book. I think it's by William F. Brown, Field Trial Standards and Practices and Management. It's an old book written in the 40s. I think Jerry described it as the Bible as it pertains to field trials, the way it was meant to be. And I thought he put that really well. It was a really interesting book. The history behind the field trial system with bird dogs is very interesting to me. I'm going to a field trial this weekend. My son and I, Father's Day coming up, we're going to we're going to do some camping, some fishing, some golfing, and a field trial. So real excited about that. It's over in Minnesota. But I'm seriously thinking about running my little dog in a grouse trial, and I put a little bit of pressure on myself because of a date that a event was coming up, and I, with the help of some friends and then some time where I just had to think about it myself and was able to think about it, I recognized and realized you're doing the same thing that so many people reach out to you on. Like, I'm talking to myself at that point, and I'm going, you're changing the way you're doing things for the reason of you'd like to run in a trial that's set at a certain date. My dog's just not ready for it. And I knew that, but I just couldn't convince myself of it. I couldn't believe myself to do it. So I was probably putting some undue stress on her and myself with the idea of, boy, I'd really like to make her mature quicker. I'd really like her to grow up faster. Well, that doesn't work. And so taking that pressure off and realizing I'm just not going to do it is what I probably, and I'm not saying that I wasn't worth thinking about. Like, think about it, but then realize when it's not something that's realistic, I had to let it go. And so I've answered that question for a lot of people. This whole process of training Makina has opened my eyes to be a little bit more empathetic to those that are training their dogs retriever-wise and don't have a lot of experience with it. Because some of the questions that I just understand the questions a lot better. A lot deeper, a lot more, because it's become kind of personal. It's something that I'm having some questions that are very similar. So it's good. It's a good thing for me in general to realize and recognize that stuff. I'm going to get into this question. This is a question that came. So it was a phone call today. It's going to be a combination of a phone call, an email that I'm trying to get back on here that I'm digging back into some emails. I've got a lot of Instagram messages to follow back up on. So if you are sending those, I really appreciate your patience with it. I'm going to work through getting them. I just got to set a few hours aside to dig into Instagram and a few hours probably to get caught up in Facebook. A lot of hours probably to do the email stuff, but we're working through it. This is the same, coincidentally, as I'm going through and catching up on some emails. It's a very similar question to a phone call I took today. I had a guy call me, and his situation was he had a 1-year-old GSP was going through tie out with the dog and was really struggling and getting quite frustrated actually with the regression that he thought he was seeing in the idea that when his kids would go out and play in the yard, the dog wouldn't be quiet. It would bark on the tie out. He said that it was better. It wasn't very good to start out with the tie out. Barked for a long time. Finally, it started to settle down by itself. Now he's added in some things where his kids go out and play, and the dog wants to play too and is barking, and he's frustrated because it seems like they're going backwards. And come to find out, it's been about 5 months that they've been doing this. The dog's about a year old, so by my math, he started doing it maybe around 7 months old. So he's telling me this, and his frustration is very clear. He's not sure what to do. He's wondering what is it. One of the things he wanted to know is it a breed thing? He said, I watch your videos and your dogs settle to it so quickly. And I told him on the phone, I said, Blue I've tied out twice and he lays down and goes to sleep. Blue's gonna be 5 months old, and he's just a real patient little dog and very nice. And so I told him that, and he goes, yeah, I know. And so is it a breed thing? Is it because it's a GSP? And I said, yeah, maybe, and jokingly, so don't be offended if you got the GSPs. I followed it up very quickly with, I've got a setter right now that's going on 8 months old. I started tying her out recently as well. I think we're probably, the longest it's been is 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours, close to 4 hours. The shortest it's been is probably a half hour. Admittedly, not super consistent with this process. I have not been. She doesn't dig, which is a really, really nice thing. She doesn't dig at all. She doesn't wreck the yard. I've got a nice shaded spot that I tie her out on, about a 4-foot cable. But she barks and whines and cries constantly. I've never had her settle in. She's never stopped. I've never been able to have her be quiet and go get her. She's never worn herself out to the point where she laid down and fell asleep. So I told him that, and he goes, well, why don't you tell other people that? I said, well, there's a lot of things I'm not able to share in everyday life. And I thought, well, I'll share it in a podcast, I guess. It's something that I'm working with her. So I have not, it's probably one of the chinks in her armor that I've run into. Now, I also asked him, I thought it was an important thing. I said, well, why do you want to do it? What's your reasoning for doing it? Because I had to think to myself, what's my reasoning? I can put her on place and she's quiet. She's been on place most of the day here. It's super hot today. It's the first real warm day. It's in the 90s and it's super humid. So I'm not tying her out today. I just don't, it's not really that safe. So I asked this guy, I said, what's your objective? What's your goal? What is the reason you're doing it? And he said, well, that's a good question. I guess I want just them to be quiet. Because I said there's a couple of reasons why I tie dogs out. One of them is that idea of them starting to understand or learning the idea that pressure to the neck is uncomfortable and the best way to turn it off is not to pull. I think that's a valuable thing for the dog to understand prior to heel work. So Makina heels really well. I didn't need to tie her out to get her to heel well. Blue heels really well. I don't need to tie him out. I do want a dog so when I was at the field trial in Minnesota, I went to this grouse trial in the spring, and I saw a guy, guys have dog boxes and all sorts of different ways of getting their dogs around. I saw a guy take his dog out and stake him in the ditch. It's just a county road or a gravel road back into some county land. So it's not like it's a lot of traffic or anything. He had tie outs and he staked his dogs out in the ditch next to the truck, and he left them, and they were quiet and they laid down and they got some fresh air, and it looked very nice, looked real comfortable. I thought, man, I want to be able to do that with my dogs too. And I came home and said I should tie her out and see how she does, because boy, those two setters looked really nice on tie out. They behaved really well, and I liked that. So that was my reason of why I would like to be able to do it. So I tied her out going, well, they did it, I'm sure she'll do it. And it was not. She almost becomes frantic on tie out. Like she starts to bark and whine, and I won't call it a howl, but it's pretty annoying. And so she's relentless. Now I have had dogs, I've had labs that do the same thing. Blue doesn't, and that's real desirable, real nice. Is it genetics? I'm sure it has something to do with it. Is it something that I won't be able to do with Makina? I doubt it. I think I'll have to be more consistent. I'll have to I'll have to face it. It's not comfortable. It's frustrating to sit in this house and listen to the dog bark. I don't have neighbors. He did. That guy had neighbors. He's like, I can't let the dog bark all the time. Well, then you're not going to be able to do it there, but you're going to have to figure out a spot where you let that dog understand that he's going to bark, he's going to bark, he's going to bark until he gives in. And that, you have to get there. And there's no way to speed it up. So one of the things I said, the first thing I said to this guy that was on the phone was, be patient. And he said, yeah, but your dog's already a year old and I've been doing this for 5 months. I said, it's not long enough. So I think that sometimes we have an idea of what patience is in our head or what's long enough in our head, and we don't realize that the dog doesn't necessarily agree with us. And guess who wins? It's not us. It's the dog. The dog is the one that is the most important part of the equation when it comes to realizing when it's time to do something. So you're going to have to be okay with the idea of you're just going to have to do it more often, more and longer and whatever. Now I said, so once I told him you're way ahead of me, I said, your dog at least is quiet by himself. I can't even get my dog to do that. Instantly, he felt a lot better about his situation. I know he did. He told me. I said, but I said, I can give you some specifics to this situation, or they can be super generalized and used and applied towards all things dog training. You're taking too big of steps is what you did. You need to take baby steps. You finally got the dog to settle down by itself, and then you brought your couple kids out in the yard to play ball or whatever they're doing. And I go, that's too big of a step. Dog told you. The dog's behavior told you. So I said, I look at that and I go, okay, now you need to break it down into simpler things. So put the dog on tie out, let it be quiet. Make sure that that's good. 100% bulletproof. Can't be wrong. It's not 50% of the time. It's not 80% of the time. It's 100% of the time. When you take the dog out, you put him on place, he's quiet. Then, next step, it's not take the kids out and play in the yard. Next step might be go out yourself into the yard, turn around, and go back in the house. And see if that triggers the dog to flip out. And if the dog flips out, you go, well, there's the point. There's the part that we can't, that's too much distraction. So you need to take a step back, or you need to do it again and again and again, but no more distraction, just that level or less until the dog can handle it. And then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, until it becomes the majority of the time, and then it's all the time. And so it's this scale thing. And the frustration point was, well, I've been doing it for 5 months and we just regressed. Yeah, well, the dog's a year old, so you haven't even been doing it half the dog's life. You've been doing it less than half the dog's life, and it hasn't been perfect the whole time. It can't be. I know it's not. It wasn't perfect for 5 months. So if you look at the ratio of time that the dog's been doing whatever it is you're asking them to do, and you expect it to just stick and be good, that's unrealistic. So when in that guy's case, it's be patient, take steps back, and just maybe take smaller steps. Now, I'm going to read this question here is from a guy, Morgan. It might be a girl, I guess, but it's from a Morgan. It says, I recently got a black lab hound mix pup, Fancy. She's about 7 months old. Been working through the foundational video guide of yours and working on getting her to working to get her set up to be a tracking dog. During the drive out, and I think he meant tie out, but during the drive out process, tie out process, she showed a lot of determination. For 5 hours, barked and pulled, never settled in. In that situation, would you let her continue, or would you change something up? She's known to bark when we kennel her and we leave, but doesn't bark in the kennel when we're home or in any other situation. We did deal with some separation anxiety in the beginning, but I think we've worked through that. So let's break that down. It's a very similar sounding situation to what I have with Makina. Same age. Sounds like the same commitment to not wanting to be on that tie out. So what I just explained I have to do, Morgan, is what I think you have to do. Be patient and do more of it. And I don't know how often your frequency of this tie out is. I can tell you right now, I think part of my problem is I haven't been consistent enough. I haven't been consistent enough because it's just not enjoyable for me. So I'm putting my hand up. It's my fault. I have not attacked it with the same energy that I attacked bringing out natural retrieve in her. Guess what is more fun for me? It's a lot more fun for me to sit in this kitchen and make little puppy retrieves with her and find success in a relatively short period of time, and then build off of that, and then build off of that. And next thing you know, we're having that's easy to do. I put off tie out primarily because of the time of the year. It was just too cold. Finally, I saw the guy that was doing it at the field trial, so I said, well, I'll do that. And my dog was about probably 5 months old at the time. And I went, so she's going to be 8 months old now. So it hasn't been that long, and I've probably only tied her out a half dozen times. So when you really think about the short amount of time and the infrequency that I've done it, once or twice a week tops, it's not a lot when it comes to the idea of changing a behavior. And we've never actually gotten to the point where the behavior changed. So I do think that I don't correct her. I don't put pressure on her. I don't try to turn her off of the idea. I'm trying to let her figure it out. I'm trying to let her figure out that it's not that bad. And so what I'm probably waiting to happen is her to get tired of barking and shut up. Finally settle in and be quiet. And then I've been threatened with that a few times. She has done that to me. There have been moments where I stood up and I snuck over the door to watch out the backyard to see, God, just be laying down. Please be laying down. She doesn't lay down, but very often. But I was just hoping she'd decide to throw in the white, throw up the white flag, throw in the towel, lay down, and quit. And she didn't. So I would sneak over there hoping to see it, didn't see it. I'd watch her for 30 seconds, and then all of a sudden she'd get her energy back up and she'd start barking again, and then I'd go back to work and I'd ignore it. And so what has to happen is we have to get to the point where she does it right. And that's going to be a battle of who can outlast the other one. And so to this point, I've never brought her in for the right thing. I've brought her in because I ran out of time. I had to go. Something. Steph hollered at me, I can't do this phone call with her barking like that. So, okay, I got to go get her. So did that help move me in the right direction? Probably not. Did it make it any worse? I don't know if it's made it any worse. It wasn't good to begin with. So I need to get her to the point to crest that hill. I need her to get past the point where she finally quits on her own willingly, and then I can go and say, good job. I haven't gotten there yet. So I'm working on it. So I also think that it's important for everyone listening to this, and Morgan, I'm going to send you an email and let you know that we did a podcast on it. And the guy that called me earlier today, he told me himself. I do think it's important for people to realize that my dogs are not magical, and my dogs have the same issues that your dogs have. I have to deal with them. I deal with them. I have to deal with them, and why we share the stuff we share, why we do the podcast, why we do the stuff that we do from a social media standpoint, why we do all the content stuff, is to try to give you as straight up, raw inside look at all of that stuff. I've got videos of Makina barking. Early on, the first tie out I ever did, I think I set a GoPro up, and now that I'm thinking about it, she may have actually stopped barking that time, and I was really thinking, wow, this isn't going to be as bad as I thought. Well, it has been. It's been worse. And so, but as I talk through it with you guys, I realize, Jeremy, you haven't done it very often. You haven't done it very long. Why do you expect it to just magically happen? Well, partly because it happened that way with Blue. And so Blue, I do think, goes back to his breeding. Like, he's bred to be quiet. I chose that sire intentionally. Ellie's like 4th generation of dogs that we've bred. Like, I know them pretty good. I've trained a whole bunch of them. That's a real desirable thing. It's a real reason why I wanted to breed them. One of the reasons I wanted to breed those dogs. So, yeah, and you've heard me already say how highly I think of Makina's breeding. So it's not a breeding thing as far as a negative, but it is a trait that I don't think is nearly as important when you look at the big picture of breeding decisions in Makina's line. And I don't know, maybe her brothers and sisters don't bark. Maybe they're quiet in the kennel. Maybe she'd be quiet in the kennel, especially if I had put her in a kennel from day one. Maybe she'd be quiet on tie out if I had tied her out right away. but I didn't. So is it genetics? I can't say that it is exclusively. Could it be? Yeah, it could be. Is there a way for me to fix it? Yeah, and that's going to take work. And so I'm going to have to decide, again, why do I do it? I'm not doing it to make the heel better. Her heel is very good. She's heeling off lead. She's really nice. I would like to be able to be in a place, because here's the other reason I want the skill in her. Because this is genetic, she definitely is a seeker. She likes to seek stuff out. And so I feel like I've got a pretty nice start to her obedience. And I think we're moving along pretty well. Recall is pretty good. Heel work is very good. The general control, the general discipline part is pretty damn good. Not great, but it's pretty good. But she covers ground so quickly. She moves so much faster than my other dogs. I was on a fishing trip this last weekend. I had Blue and I had Makina with me, and I brought him up to my buddy's cabin up in the UP, or his second house basically in the UP, and we went and fished in this tournament. It was a great time. Totally what I needed. I brought those two dogs, which everybody loved them. I mean, it's really fun to travel with dogs that are easy to travel with. It's really fun to travel with dogs that behave really well and people are impressed by, because they're very nice dogs to be around. That's why they're family dogs first for me. But and that's where my focus is early on in training. So that was good. All that stuff was very good. Place training was really good as long as I had my beds with, and they were great on those, in the cabin, in the garage. Kennels, they are a little whiny in the kennel, but it was a lot. There was a lot of distractions there. But I would let them out of the kennel, take them to air them out. And Blue, I just let him. He hangs right with me. He's not going anywhere. He's always close. When he does hang out by himself or drift off a little bit, he never goes far. He's real easy and low maintenance. Now Makina, you got to keep an eye on, which I did, and I had her off lead, and it was, we weren't there very long, and they're not on a highway, but they're on a county road that's relatively busier than I would want it to be to have my dogs running around. So next thing I looked, and here she is. She's vanished. I mean, she's fast, and she's out in front, and she's on the road, and I'm calling her, and there's a car coming, and I got her back. She came back to me, and I put her on a leash, and I looked at them, and I go, I'm not taking her off the leash. And I kept her on. She'd come out of the kennel, and it's not like I was afraid of her running away or anything, but she'd come out of the kennel, and I'd put her on a leash, more so for myself to remind me, don't take your eyes off of her, because real quickly she can cover a lot more ground. So why do I want a dog that I can conveniently put a stake in the ground with a 4 to however long foot cable? I don't think they need a real long one, but I have these 4-foot cables, and I want to be able to put that stake in the ground, put her on it, and just let her find a piece of shade and lay down in it and be quiet. That's real nice, as opposed to having to put her on her place or having to put her in her kennel. Now, those are alternatives, but I like the idea of staking out the dog as well. But I would not even think about it if the dog's going to be noisy on it. So that's my reason, and that's why, because of the style of dog she is, I would like to be able to do that with her, probably more than I do with Blue, or feel like I need to with Blue. So again, assess the reason, understand the why you need to do things, and that helps you figure out how and where you're going to take to do it. So Morgan, I hope this helps you. I feel like you're in a very similar situation. Now let's talk a little bit. So 7 months is super, super young. You have a very determined dog. You need to get past it. And so I don't know how often you're doing it. I don't know what the setup looks like. What I would say is break it down and simplify it. Make it as easy for the dog to succeed as possible, because that's really what you and I both need to do, is we have to figure out how can we get our dogs to succeed. You know what? I might even try. I don't know that it's going to work, but I might try it. I'm taking her with me this weekend. We're going to go watch that trial this weekend. We're going to do some fishing and camp and stuff. I might bring the stake out with, and I might tie her out when I'm at the campfire, because my idea is always, well, make it very little distracting, or very little distractions. So stake her out in the corner of the yard where there's not anything around. Well, that drives her nuts. She barks. So I might take it and put her just outside of my reach, so she's not rubbing up against me and I don't have contact with her physically, but she's pretty close. I might stake her out there and have her be a part of the circle, but not in my lap, but also no freedom that she can wander around, and it's not necessarily on her bed. She sat around a lot of campfires on her bed. So I might this weekend, this is an idea that just popped up. I might try, simplify it, just change it from what she's used to doing and incorporate that tie out and cable. I might try that this weekend. And if that goes well, then maybe I would set it up in a different situation where maybe doing a little bit of yard work or doing something we're cutting asparagus, or Lillian and I have this little garden or whatever we're doing, and put her close to that and make it so that if she settles into that, make it so that we just add a little bit of distance to that. Maybe I make it where we're working on, this is another progressional step. We're at the campfire and we're tied out and she's good and we're good, and then I go inside for a little bit. And then I come back. And as long as she settles in and isn't quiet, isn't fussing and isn't freaking out, we slowly. So now what we did was we just reversed the situation. Instead of isolating her, we put her right in the middle of the action, and then we isolated ourselves from her slowly but surely. So that's something that I may try. Will it work? I don't know. But I can't continue. One of the things that I talked with the guy on the phone today was, look, man, if it's not working, because he wanted to know, what do I do? What do I do? I'm going to keep, should I just keep doing this? I said, if it's not working, there's something to be said about being consistent and trying to be consistent. But if it's consistently not working, I do think at some point we have to make a change. This is a broad, general thing. This is in all training. If it's not working, tweak it and see what happens. And if it works better, good. How come? You kind of understand why. Continue to work towards that direction. If it makes it even worse, go, oop, that's not the fix. How about this? That's where I feel like it's important for people to realize this isn't a black and white thing. It's not. It's just not. Like, I thought about this recently. I was driving home from dropping off my kids from school, and I'm looking at the fields. Like, fields are almost all planted around here. Corn, beans. But so here's what's interesting to me. I think that dog training is a little bit like being a farmer. Now, I'm not a farmer, but I pretend to be every year. I put food plots in, and I do a garden, and I do stuff like that. It's on a really different scale, obviously. But my wife has tried 4 or 5 different ways to try to minimize weeds in her garden. I drove by farmers that had winter wheat and oats put in, and some of them work it under and plant. Some of them no-till into it and then spray it off. Some of them no-tilled into like corn stubble. Some of them, I saw some guys that hook their plows up and they plow and then disc. I see some guys that just disc it. I see some plant early. I see some plant late. I see some plant, 8-inch rows. I see some with 16-inch rows. I see some with 24-inch rows. I see a million different ways. I see some guys take a crop off. Like, I don't know what it was. They took it off and like harvested it. And then I saw them put liquid manure into it and then work it back up and reseed it down. I don't know if it's an alfalfa or what, but I've seen, I'm not a farmer, but I recognize there's very few farmers, and we've got a lot of farmers around here, that do it the same. They all get a crop. Some probably get better crops than others. Some may get better crops more consistently. Some might not, but they're all farmers. They're all raising relatively similar crops. They're all kind of doing the same job, but they're doing it so differently. And then I think about it, the depth of it, as you start peeling layers back of this whole thing, and you go, well, yeah, they all have different soil. They all have different conditions. This guy's stuff got really wet and this guy's didn't. This guy's drains really well. This guy's doesn't. This guy is on a hill. This guy's in a bottom. Now there's a whole bunch more variables we put on top of it. well, this guy's got a GSP and this guy's got a lab hound mix that just sent me this, and I've got a Labrador that I think is really well bred, that the next guy might look at it and go, I wouldn't touch that dog with a 10-foot pole because it's not going to do what he wants it to do, how he wants it to do it. Then I got this set. I mean, there's so many of these variables that I don't think there are general principles to farming that apply. There's common sense stuff. There's some scientific stuff. But there is definitely a lot of different ways to do it. And I just think that training a dog can be a parallel to that. There are a lot of ways to do it. And within the same farm, if I'm the farmer, I might raise this one a little bit different than that one, which is a little bit different than that one. And I might have to try something new with the next one because I've never seen the dog do it this way or that way or try this or try that. And if I'm so set in my ways that I can't see beyond my little bubble, I'm never going to be able to succeed in the masses, that's for sure. I mean, some of you guys listening to this you don't need to be able to train 50 different styles of dogs. But at the same time, if you're a one dog family and you're going to have 5 of them in your lifetime, you don't have as many opportunities to try stuff. Maybe all the more reason you need to have a better understanding and recognize the concept or the idea of, if it doesn't work, try something different. Now, I don't think that being said, I think that's really important. At the same time, I don't think you change directions every other day. Like, you got to have enough confidence in your system or in your approach that you figure that it's this concept works. It's going to maybe take some time or a little bit of a tweak or a little bit of an adjustment and then more time and then build this and then a little more time and then build that and a little more time. Because 7 months old is this guy's dog. My dog is 8 months old. My other dog is 5 months old. The guy that I talked to on the phone today was 12 months old. All of those dogs are a year or younger. And when you think about it that way, it's like, it puts it into perspective of, boy, we can be impatient about some things. We can really think that things should go a lot faster than they actually are going to. So that's it. I think we covered. I don't want to beat it to death, but there's a lot in this little talk that I just had about that I think can apply specifically to the idea of tying a dog out. But I also think it probably applies to some of our need for patience and our need for flexibility when it comes to our approach with our dogs and our willingness to take a step back probably and assess it and then make a decision and re-engage ourselves and then see how that goes. So hope it helps you guys. I appreciate your support. If you're a new listener, welcome. If you are an old listener, thank you. If you do me a favor, whatever platform you're listening to the podcast on, some of you actually will see some of this on video too. If you're YouTube subscribers, these later go to video blogs. But if you do me a favor, if you leave us a review, if you're not a YouTube person, I'd ask you to check our YouTube out and subscribe and turn notifications on. There's a lot of really good information there. Our website has our training library. I think that's real important and valuable. Our podcast, if you're listening to it on an app or one of those things that play podcasts, if there's a spot for it to be reviewed, it'd be great if you'd leave us a review and a rating. The idea behind that for us is it allows us to get a little bit of feedback and understanding of what we're doing well and what we're not doing so well if they're negative. But the other thing is it allows for other people, I think, to find us easier based on how our listeners are rating us and keywords and all that stuff. So if you enjoy what you're doing and you leave us a rating and you leave us some feedback, it'll probably help someone else find it. And to me, I think I ask myself a lot, what are your goals? What is your objective with training? What are you trying to get out of tying out? That was one of the things I had to ask that guy. What are we trying to get out of this podcast? And I think the answer is, it kind of ties back to why we do all the content stuff that we're doing. It ultimately is to hopefully help you enjoy and get a little bit more out of your training. Our tools are great. Some people don't even realize that we have a store, an online store. We sell stuff, and retail stores sell our stuff. Like, we've got a lot of products too. So if you are interested in the product part, yeah, check that out. Like, I think everything we sell makes my life easier. It's something we've designed. It's something we make, and we're proud of it. We do it here in the States, intentionally. It's a choice we've made as a small business. But so that's how we pay our bills. But all the content stuff is simply to help you figure out how to use the stuff, because the tools are really good. I'm really proud of them, but they won't work if you don't know how to use them. And so if you don't use them properly. So why do we do all the content we're doing? Why do we share all the stuff we share for free? It's because it will help you find success. That I truly believe that. So the more people that we can offer that to, well, the more satisfaction we're going to get. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I'll continue to record these, and the guys that are always hustling to get them turned around. So thank you. Father's Day coming up this weekend. I don't know if this will play before Father's Day. I think it will, but happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We'll talk with you guys soon.